Hello, my name is William Hall, Superintendent of Schools for Salina USD 305. We're here today to bring you exciting information about a program that's starting here in Salina for all high school students at both South High, Central High, as well as our alternative schools, Salina West Alternative Program. Before we get started, however, I want to have each of the panelists introduce themselves. Let's start to my right here.
I'm Ayana Dixon, a sophomore at Central High.
I'm Katie Benson. I'm a curriculum tech for Salina Public Schools.
And my name is Hector Ortega. I am currently a senior at South High.
And I'm Janet Sauber. I am also a curriculum technologist for USD 305.
Now this panel, all of us are representing USD 305. Now it's kind of interesting because Hector's here as a senior. So Hector will not be able to actually take advantage of this exciting new initiative. However, he's going to provide some valuable input because he had an opportunity to pilot this program. And the program I'm talking about is our one-to-one Chromebook initiative. And you may have heard some of the information about that. But I want to give you a little background information. In February of 2014, just a few months ago, the Board of Education of USD 305 approved a one-to-one Chromebook initiative for all high school students in USD 305. Now this is an exciting opportunity. We've actually been working on this for a couple of years. This hasn't been an easy process, and I say that from the standpoint it's been exciting. But gosh, trying to narrow it down to which device is the device that will most meet the needs of all of our students in many different ways is a very, very difficult process. And I can remember back working with several board members. A couple of years ago, we actually went and visited several schools. I know board member Larry Michael and I actually went and visited St. John's Military. And they were using, I believe, Apple books at that point in time. And we were just impressed with the fact that it was offered so much more flexibility for kids. They were utilizing some electronic textbooks at that time. And so Mr. Michael brought that back, we visited with the board, and decided at that point in time, the board gave the directive, why don't we pursue this and study one-to-one and what the best option would be for Salina USD 305. And with that, a committee was compiled who spent about a year looking at all the different devices, and not just the devices. As you might imagine, there's a lot of different complexities involved in implementing something like this. It's more than just the device. We're talking about policies and procedures and making sure that we have guidelines in place in terms of appropriate use policies and things of that nature, not to mention the support that we need for the hardware, as well as making sure that we have the technology infrastructure in place. And spent quite a bit of time, as I said, about a year before we narrowed it down to this exciting new device called the Google Chromebook. And the Google Chromebook offers the opportunity to provide online accessibility through a program, applications called Google Docs, where students can actually access their work online, and they could store it in the cloud, so to speak, and access it any time that they need to. And at the same time, it also offers some minimal storage space on the device itself. But the committee felt like this particular device will form probably the two primary sources that we need for students. That's the ability to create documents, which you can absolutely do that, and the ability to access the internet. And so from this, we're looking at some exciting opportunities as far as some electronic or digital textbooks. And I know one of the primary things we talked about was, my gosh, I'm up at the high schools and I see kids carrying literally books and books and books in their backpacks, yeah. And I'm like, my gosh, how do we keep from having so many back problems? And I visited with a few kids yesterday, and they decided, that's going to be just really cool, just have maybe just one device that will serve as all of our textbooks. And so with that, I thought we'd just have a very informal conversation. Our purpose here is to really educate our parents and our students about what exactly this is going to look like between now and when this is implemented in August. And so I'm just going to start and kind of throw out a question to the group here. Maybe each of you could kind of go around and just explain what your involvement has been in this process thus far. I believe we had a pilot project at both of our two schools. Hector and Ayana, both of you were involved in that pilot project. Tell me a little bit about the pilot project and what you learned from that.
Well, we started in Miss Bigler's class, and we started with essays, and we just kind of typed, and then as we went along, we learned more and more about it and how it works. So as we moved on, it got easier. And
that was with the Chromebook
yeah.
itself, the device that's in front of Hector there.
Yes.
Okay.
And later we left our folders in our notepads, and we just moved everything onto the Chromebook. So it's a lot easier and less books.
So you were able to did you actually work within Google Docs then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
And then were you able to download documents onto the computer itself?
I didn't try that myself, but yeah, it was just easier to like find stuff and
Okay.
type it. And
Now, what about accessing the internet? Were you able to do that
oh
as
yeah,
well?
it was easy, and we learned new tricks like how to find stuff that are good sources.
On the internet,
Yeah.
using the internet. Okay, very good. And so you found like it was a pretty worthwhile experience, and did you feel comfortable using the Chromebook?
Oh yes.
Now, I would imagine, do you consider yourself technology literate? I mean, you're pretty good. I would imagine, I mean, most kids these days are technology literate.
Yeah.
It's kind of, sometimes it's us adults that are trying to figure it out, you know, but I would imagine kids, is this something that you think students will pick up really quickly and move forward with?
Easily, yeah.
All right, very good. Well, Hector, why don't you share with us some of your experiences? Maybe show us a little bit about the device.
All right, well, this is a Google Chromebook. One of the great things, and I think I can speak for everybody or every student that has gotten you know, some kind of form to be able to use it, is I just opened up the screen, and then literally less than 10 seconds, it's already booted up. A lot of the laptops that we would use, Mr. Hall, it would take, you know, 5-10 minutes, and by that time period, either the students that were intrigued in whatever they were going to do suddenly lost interest, and they're goofing off with their friends or whatever. And from here on, all I have to do is click on my user and just type in my password real quick. And from then on, I am accessed into the Chromebook. And from there, everything is really, really, really easy to use. Like Ayana said, using the Google Documents was crazy. Teachers, all they had to do was literally just share a page for us. And from there, everything that we edited was saved on there. We wouldn't have to worry about the document suddenly disappearing and deleting, and then suddenly you had to restart. It was all stored on there. She could check your progress, so you couldn't just say, oh yeah, I'm working, and you're over here Googling something or whatever. So she can see the progress. I think it's a great thing so far.
As I understand it, and I can't remember the name of the application, but the teacher has the ability to control the desktop. I understand.
Yes.
From their computer.
Yes.
So they can see exactly what all the students are doing in real time. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's one of the great ways that the teachers can keep us on task and, you know, accomplish our certain tasks that we have for the day.
Now, Hector, both Hector and Ayana, this is something that Ayana, you will have the opportunity of experiencing this, and Hector, not necessarily, but going on to college, you're obviously going, it's going to be important to you. But how do you see this changing the way education or instruction is delivered to high school students? How will this change your life as a high school student?
Oh, just from the very beginning, when we saw the Chromebooks, we started seeing kind of a glimpse of the future, in the sense of, I was talking with Janet, how the education process now, everything is dealt with technology, and a lot of our kindergartners and stuff have their own phones even, and so technology is evolving, and if education can't seem to keep up with that, I feel like there's going to be a huge gap in between that. And with the Google Chromebooks that we're using, I think it's going to interpret that just very, very well.
Very good, very good. Do you see a lot more hands-on, project-based type learning and things of that nature?
I do, and I think I could speak for Ayana as well in that sense. I personally won't get to experience using this in class, but I think Ayana will have a great time using it.
Very good. Well, one of the things I want to touch on as well, and as you might imagine, we're talking about roughly 2,000 Chromebooks that will be purchased. And Hector, you might share what the different components of that will be, what each student will actually receive.
Right, they will receive the Chromebook here. It'll come with their own charger. It's a very different kind of charger in the sense that all the other ones were thicker and whatnot, and here it's a very, very small hole, so it's very easy to use. They have talked a little about getting a case, and I think they're going to go ahead and do that. And the case protects it in case, you know, you drop it, how we've all experienced dropping our phones and kind of freak out in that sense. And it's got a little stand that I was informed about that kind of tilts it up so it can use it a little better, and I think it's a great thing. That
See, and I didn't. You taught me there because I didn't even know that had those little legs on there, and so the case is really important because it actually protects the Chromebook, and that's extremely important that they're kind of moving forward with that. So each of the students will receive that,
correct,
and we have that plan to be rolled out in August, and instrumental in that, as you might imagine, besides just, it's not just as simple as let's order 2,000 Chromebooks and get them in and hand them out to kids and let's get started. There's a lot of things that have to happen in the implementation process. I've been working closely with the Technology Policy Development Review Committee, and we've been working diligently on developing policies around the use of the Chromebook and acceptable use policies and do's and don'ts, if you will, and things that students understand the expectations. Because when you start talking about device, and the device itself retails, I think it's about $249, not an extremely expensive device. But when you start talking about putting technology in the hands of every single student, you can understand the different issues that may arise and why we have to deal with a lot of those issues, and it's important that we do that. So with that, we have those policies in place. Those actually be presented for the board's approval here within next week. But I also know, too, that Janet and Katie, you're going to be instrumental in this as well, because just the development of the policies, we also need the maintenance and the support. And it's not just as far as having IT people necessarily, technology people to support it. We want to integrate this with curriculum, with instruction. It's extremely important that we do that. It's not a toy. This is an instructional delivery device. And so with that, I know Janet and Katie, you're going to both be directly involved in the implementation and the coordination of this moving forward at each of the two schools. Because Janet, you'll be located in which school?
I'll be at South High School.
And Katie, you will be at Central. And so consequently, it'll be kind of your responsibility to oversee the whole project, provide support to teachers, provide support to students. So talk a little bit about maybe your role in this process thus far with the implementation, and then what your job will be as part of the one-to-one Chromebook initiative.
Well, one of the things we know is that unless teachers receive support for using technology and really using anything new in education, unless they receive the support, they're not going to be able to put that in place. Teachers make thousands of decisions every day, and the more stressed the situation is, the more likely we are to fall back to the way that we've taught in the past. And Katie and I are both certified teachers, so we've been in the classroom. But we both also love working with technology, so we're extremely excited about using the Chromebooks and helping teachers use them in their classrooms. And we understand that there's some hesitation, there's some concerns from the teachers. How am I going to do this? My students will know more than I know. I don't want to look like the dumbest one in the class. There are those concerns, and we've already started to address some of those by getting some of our teachers, or by getting all of our teachers, our high school teachers, some in-service here in the spring. And we have worked with all of the teachers to get them logged onto the Chromebooks, to get them logged into their Google Drive account so that they can get to Google Docs and they can learn how to use Google Presentation. And we're doing a lot of work over the summer with classes that are being offered. We're having a big conference on June 17th and 18th called the ICE Conference, which stands for Innovation and Creativity in Education. And we're just really excited about getting information out to our teachers, and we encourage them to take advantage of those opportunities for learning about the Chromebooks and Google Apps for Education, and then also doing a lot of self-educating, because there's a tremendous amount of material on the internet that would help them learn more about the device and also the Google Apps for Education.
And I might add to that, this is a great tool. It's very small and it's convenient. It's inexpensive, which makes it ideal. But the real power is in the Chrome browser, and that's the piece that's going to take time to teach. Mm-hmm. And in addition to the front-end work that we've done, part of it is working with the administrators at the two schools to talk to them about supporting that and pushing, the adoption of the device and utilizing it in their classrooms, but doing it in a gradual way so we don't overwhelm the teachers. And as Janet mentioned, we've both been classroom teachers. We know how stressful that job is. And finding time to go out and find those things is not always available. And so that's where we come into play and say, hey, look at this new thing that I found. Let us show you how to use that in your classroom.
Katie and Janet, have you had conversations with teachers about the Chromebook One-to-One initiative, and what are some responses that you're getting?
We've had the full gamut. Mm-hmm. We have those that are just scared to death. We have those that have kind of said, hey, we don't need your help. We got it. I've got it under control. I know what I'm doing. I actually am helping in a classroom this week that one of the teachers that did the pilot has decided to dive into WeVideo, which is an app with the Chrome browser. And so, I mean, she's just head first into it. She said, come in and help me and we'll get this figured out. And so it's, a lot of them are, I think they're really coming around. We did a training today, and the feedback, it's the fear factors kind of coming down, I think. I've seen that change.
Good.
So.
Right.
Good.
Some of what they're concerned about is, how do I manage it in my classroom? What happens if? How do I deal with that? And part of that is having Katie and myself in the buildings is going to help alleviate a lot of that concern. And we're also setting up student tech support centers. And if there is an issue with the Chromebook, if it has a cracked screen, if it's not charged, if it's not working, then the students will take their non-functioning Chromebook or a broken Chromebook to the Student Tech Center, and it'll both of those tech centers will be located in the libraries, so everybody knows where that is, and they will be able to take them in there and get a loaner device so that they were able to access their online materials. So every student, every day is sort of the mantra we're going with, and so if a student leaves it at home or leaves it in the car or whatever, that's not going to be an excuse for getting out of work. There will be alternative ways to access their learning materials.
Well, that's kind of interesting, Janet, that you should mention that, because we are making a movement away from what we would call printed textbooks.
Right.
We are still looking at purchasing printed copies. We might just have a representative amount in the classroom in the event that the Chromebook's not functioning or the internet's down or whatever. But ultimately, do you see us moving away from printed copies to electronic textbooks?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and Janet will give you more specifics, but one of the things the teachers that did the pilot were pretty insistent that they have access to a printer.
Very good.
And so we made sure they had printers in their classrooms, but didn't turn out to be a necessity, which is very exciting, because you say paperless and they're like, no, that's not going to happen.
It's a big transition, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Right.
and it's just happening, and they're not even trying, it's just happening, which is really cool.
And a lot of times the students are the ones that are driving that change, because the teacher will hand them a piece of paper and they'll say, well, why don't you just give that to me in my drive?
Yes.
Why don't you just share that with me? And the teacher will be like, oh yeah, okay. And they'll go and do that. And I guess I would like Ayana and Hector to talk about that. What does that mean when you go home and you have access to those things rather than trying to shove them in your backpack or so forth? Ayana, you want to speak about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it'd be a lot easier to carry, first of all, and I wouldn't lose it that easy. And I think it'd just be great for everybody, because you don't have the excuse to say, I've lost the paper. You can, it's in the Google Drive.
And do you have internet at home?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have access to
every
everything.
student
So you
does,
can't
yeah.
say the dog ate my homework.
I was exactly
anymore.
going to go on that.
Well, and that's an interesting point when you start talking about internet accessibility at home, because it's an important distinction that folks understand, that students, to get access at home, will still have to have that internet accessibility. And if they don't have that, I think we did a recent survey of high school kids, and I was amazed. I mean, we're talking 75, 80% of the kids said that they had internet accessibility at home. And so I thought, wow, it was much higher than what I even thought it was. But if they don't, then they're still going to be responsible to find their own hotspot, so to speak, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, and we're in the process of putting together something for them, for families that need that tell them all the places they can go for free Wi-Fi. But the other thing is they can set up their documents offline, so that they can still take that home and utilize it to work on the existing assignments. The minute they walk in to the district's Wi-Fi,
That's
boom,
interesting.
it updates it.
So they don't necessarily, if they want to continue working on a document, they don't have to have internet accessibility to do that?
That's right. That's right.
Wow, that's a good thing. I didn't realize that. Okay.
And the
very
nice
good.
thing is if you have that document pulled up when you leave school,
Right.
it's there and waiting for you no matter when you open it up. And then the next time you,
Very
like
good.
Katie said, the next time you're in a Wi-Fi spot, it automatically updates, but it's saving for you all the time.
Excellent.
Hector, do you want to talk about the saving thing?
Yeah, the saving thing is, like I mentioned a little earlier, is a great thing to it. Like you said, we can't say that excuse anymore that my dog ate my homework, because unless it physically destroyed this, that would be something else. But it does save to its own hard drive in a sense, I guess you could say. It doesn't matter if you're not connected to the internet. I remember an instance in class where suddenly the internet just went down, and so we were like, oh yay, we can get out of it. But she goes, oh no, you can keep working. And as you're typing, in the top right-hand corner, it says saving. So as soon as that internet clicked back on, it all updated. She was able to notice the progress that we had done. And so in answer to your question, it's a marvelous thing that's going on with it.
Good. Well, and I think it's important for our parents to understand as well that, you know, we're required under federal regulations that we make sure that all of our internet is filtered. In terms of making sure that we don't have inappropriate sites that are coming through for any of our students to be able, or staff to be able to see those things. And so it's important that folks understand that we will have software loaded on the Chromebooks that they will be filtered as well, both when they're inside and outside the network. And so it's important that our parents understand that that protection that's available to students now will still be available to them with the Chromebooks. So it's important to do that. So any other thoughts about this? I mean, I just view this as exciting. I'm thinking back in my high school days. Well, I'm sure they had computers, but it would have been cool anyway. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? It's such a neat deal, isn't it?
It is a great deal, in my opinion. The classes that have been able to pilot it, or the teachers that have been able to experience it, I've gotten nothing but positive feedback amongst other seniors and whatnot. We're kind of bummed out at the fact that we're not going to get to experience it, but the students that will are saying nothing but that they're excited, that they can't wait to not have to carry 50, 60 pounds of textbooks that they usually carry around in their backpacks, and being able to just have the teacher share the document with you and never have to deal with losing a paper or losing anything. It's all right there. It's very simple to use. It's a great thing so far.
Hey, Anna, anything you want to add?
I'm excited, and I've talked to students that haven't even used it, saying they're excited for it, and it's better because we can teach them, and it's just a great thing.
Well, one thing I noticed, and Hector, you'd mentioned the different components when we talked about this too in the committee. But one thing that you have to do with the Chromebook is you have to keep it charged.
Right.
And it does hold a charge for, I think they've already tested that. If they bring it charged up, it'll last all day long, right? You know, but then you need to plug it in when you get back home, right? And make sure it's ready for the next day. But we are looking at having some charging charging station, I think, available at each school in the event that we need to. But with that, we're really encouraging students to be responsible enough to keep those devices charged. And then obviously we will have, besides having both Janet and Katie at each of the schools from a curriculum standpoint, we will have technology support as well to maintain the devices as well. Katie, Janet, what are your final thoughts on where?
I would like to mention one more thing, because I'm really excited about the student tech team. Because it hasn't been that long since I've been in the classroom, and people ask me if I miss students, and I'm really kind of looking forward to working with students again on that. I realize it won't be direct instruction as much, but having students available that are excited about it, that'll help troubleshoot for teachers, for students, that kind of thing, and getting them trained, I think that's just going to be an awesome thing. It's another opportunity for us to engage students that might otherwise not be engaged.
Now, how many of those students, have they been identified yet? Or?
We're in the process of accepting applications, and we'd ideally like to have 2 per block. That way, if one needed to go out to a classroom, one would still be in the office to accept incoming.
That's very neat.
Now, do you know, will that be a class where the kids could actually get credit
We're
for it?
working toward creating that as a
almost
credit
like
class.
office
Kinda
aid, but it could be something
Well,
else.
it's more like the library media class that they do, and they get a semester's credit for that. So, because they will have training involved with it and expectations for performance and customer service and the repair and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, and then another issue, Katie, as you were just talking there, one of the concerns that was kind of shared back to me is will this encourage students for more plagiarism or things like that? And what are your thoughts on that?
The tool itself has everything it needs to catch that.
Yes.
Good.
It really does. I don't think, the other part of it is it's also a tool that makes it very easy to cite other sources. It's no longer, I got to do another bibliography, or I've got to put my...
It's pretty easy to determine at that
Yeah,
current.
but it's also easier for them to bring in those
Correct.
outside sources
Right.
and put it into their document.
Well, as I understand it too now, I think the device itself, as I understand it, is very good for collaborative type work. Isn't that
Yes,
correct?
yes, I would love to speak to that because and it's not so much the device itself. It's the Google Apps for Education. It's getting onto the Google Drive, and it's very easy to share. We could all be sharing the same document. It's very easy. It's one of the ways that we're really encouraging teachers to start using it is amongst themselves. So if, for example, the testing schedule is a nightmare because every time a change is made in the Excel file, it has to be sent out again. But if you made that testing schedule in Google Spreadsheets instead, you would only have to have one address. You email that out to everybody, and you can make however many changes on that you need to. And it's slicker than a whistle, and it works really well. And the kids working in groups, they don't have to be in the same room anymore to work in groups. They can be in different parts of the building. It could be at night. Right. They can be accessing it at home. They could be on a Chromebook, they could be on their phone, their smartphone, they could be on a computer at their house or at the library. Any place that they can get on the internet, they can get to their items. And so the sharing aspect of it is just enormous.
Right, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I know there's teachers, whenever you do writing assignments, for instance, and they do a lot of peer editing and peer review. To me, it seems it would be perfect for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the teacher can share that document with multiple kids, and then they can go in and they can put their comments and then share it with the next one. And,
Right.
and from that standpoint, a pretty powerful instructional tool when you start looking at things like that.
The other thing I would just throw in there real quick is they're not bound to this device to work on their stuff. So if Ayana went home and she had to leave this for a screen repair, she could get on her home computer and access all that.
Right.
Jan just recently did a presentation at a conference on using Google Forms, and the people in the session were on iPhones, Android phones, iPads, MacBook Pros, laptops and tablets, and all of them were able to do Google Forms.
See, it's kind of interesting because you mentioned that, and then we're sitting here as educators and for Hector and Ayana in the other world, adults, and we're sitting there thinking, you know, what can we do to move forward? And at the same time, right around us, all the kids are already carrying around all these devices.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you know, what can we do to limit that? And it's like, why are we trying to limit that? Why don't
Right.
we use that as an opportunity for students? Because they're using it anyway.
Right.
And it's out there, and so we're inhibiting them if we don't in any way encourage
them where
that.
they are.
Absolutely right. Now, one thing I noted, now when you actually log on, you actually have a login name, a login.
Right.
You have to type in your login and your password, because every student will have a password, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So it is password protected.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And I know we talked about that at length because we are all encouraging all of our students, do not share your
That's
passwords.
right.
That is that secret, private, personal information, and you don't want to share that with any of your other students or anyone else for that matter. So,
Right.
so that's kind of how you'll access that. Now, tell me a little bit. I think Janet and Katie, you might have been involved in the implementation when it actually comes. Okay, it's August, school's starting, kids show up. It's not like they're going to walk in the front door of South and Central and say, "Okay, here's your Chromebook."
Right.
What's the process? How's that going to work?
And I don't know if it's uniform yet.
Right.
We're both working with the administrators in our individual buildings, but I don't think it's going to be everybody on one day. It's
No, it's
probably
not
going to be
going to be everybody on one
seniors
day.
get them one day, and then juniors, and then over several day time period.
Because I think they're going to take some time and maybe go over we actually have a Google Chromebook handbook.
Right. Right.
And spend some time and
There's
go over the handbook.
orientation.
Exactly.
Right, and we
Yeah,
want the
very
students
good.
to be aware of what their responsibilities are and what the consequences are if they choose to not adhere to those responsibilities. But we want to emphasize the fact that this is an enormous opportunity. And so, but with those opportunities come some responsibilities. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is extremely exciting. I just, as I said, you only hope for the opportunity that you can provide something like this for students, especially something that they're doing. You just know it's going to provide more opportunities, and they'll connect so well. It'll be a seamless opportunity. And so I just think that's so great. Anything else any of you would like to share before we close the program?
I would like to go ahead and, you mentioned something about sharing it and being able to edit it more than one person. I've had several senior projects in which they share the document with you, the teacher does, and then from there, you both work on it at the same time. You can see what they're editing, you can see what you're editing, and it's just, gets things done a lot quicker rather than getting one computer, one of the students be slacking off, the other one doing the work, and now there's no excuse. Now it's both of
They're
you
all
should be
part of
doing.
the
Right
same
there.
process.
Right.
Everybody has the same access.
And it's all real time, so
Right.
that's good. Anyone else?
We're just excited.
Well,
We are. Very.
this is exciting, and Ayana, Katie, Hector, Janet, thank you very much for being here today. Outstanding people with USD 305, and we're all excited about moving forward with this Chromebook one-to-one initiative. Appreciate the board support as we kind of move forward and we get the implementation in place, but just one more example, it's learning for all, whatever it takes in USD 305.